Welcome to another episode of The Christ-Centered Life. We are excited to be able to continue our story that began last episode with dating. We're going to continue that on today with engagement and early marriage years.
And I just need to say, War Eagle.
War Eagle to you.
Regular season SEC champs. Mm-hmm. We'll see how it goes in the tournaments, but hey, doing pretty well right now. Special thanks to the Tennessee Vols for hitting an almost half-court shot to beat the Evil Empire, Alabama Crimson Tide, and then that propelled Auburn to its regular season SEC championship. So,
well, believe it or not, that is not why I'm wearing this shirt. I am wearing this shirt because the loveliest village on the plains plays a very special part in our engagement story.
You know what? It sure does.
Yeah.
So we want to take our listeners and viewers from that time when we first started dating to the time that we were engaged, married, and really we'd like to get up to that just before we have Jackson, just before Jackson's born. So just to kind of remind everybody of a timeline, we started dating in the year 2000.
Yes, we did. I'm not going to sing it this time. I sang it last time.
Yeah, well, anyway, it's a very niche reference of that song is. But so we'll move right along. So we started dating in the year 2000, and we covered how we started dating last time, and we talked also about how from the very beginning, very early in the relationship, we both knew that this was that you were the one I wanted to spend the rest of my life with, and even
as were you.
And even just knowing, I really believe this is who the Lord's brought into my life.
Yeah, there was a definite difference in our relationship than in any other relationship I had had, and it was clear to me that the Lord's hand and providence was on that, and that He was leading us into a marriage relationship with one another. So we dated for 2 years, and
I do want to emphasize all throughout dating, engagement, marriage, even to today, the Lord's blessing on our marriage. And I don't think I recognized that early on. I think I thought of it more along the lines of, well, we're doing things the right way, so therefore this is turning out the way that it should turn out. But the more that we do couples ministry, the more I just realized God just blessed us with a really incredible relationship. And so the same was true for me. It was just different than any other relationship I'd ever had.
Yeah. And we didn't do everything the right way, and we certainly had plenty of mistakes that were made along the way, and still continue to deal with those things as human beings made in the image of God, but marred by our sins. So that's a part of our story all the way through as well.
I just want to give glory to God, though, and just honor to Him. And I don't want people to hear this and think, oh, well, good for y'all.
Right.
You know, you did things the right way, and you did some things that really helped out your marriage, because we're going to talk about some things that we did, some changes that we made, some things we pursued, and I don't want people to hear this and say, well, that's why it all worked out.
Right.
It really was just the grace of God.
The Lord was just gracious to us and is still gracious to us.
Okay, so we dated. We dated for 2 years.
We did. That included you taking me to high school dances. A tornado was involved in that as well.
So much in that.
I think we talked about that a little bit maybe.
Your grandmother passed away, and I got to experience the Roberts family way of grieving, which is through humor.
A Roberts funeral is interesting.
It is a very interesting thing. There's nothing quite like it out there.
That's
so it is, it's an interesting event.
Yeah.
So I got to experience that.
We got to go on some mission trips together through Baptist Campus Ministries.
Did you get to do, while we were dating, I'm sure you did you get to do a Thanksgiving or Christmas meal at Grandmother Allen's house with all the cousins and all that?
I'm sure I did, but I can't remember specifically what that would have been.
And then
my first impression of that.
The dichotomy, between.
I do remember.
Okay.
So I remember we had Christmas meal with your grandmother at your grandmother's house, and then we went up and had Christmas like day and after with my extended family.
Is this when the tea was?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
yes.
Definitely. I didn't know if we were married yet, but
yes. And I remember I had bought you a sleeping bag for Christmas,
right?
And I gave that to you there at my Aunt Betty's house. But my extended family is just a modge podge of unique personalities that are.
As is mine, by the way.
Yes, but
different spectrums.
Very different.
I mean,
mine was on the very formal.
Yeah.
end of things, and yours is on the very Sand Mountain end
Yeah.
of things. And
Your family is what I grew up thinking of as, wow, those are really, really fancy people.
fancy.
I mean, those are high class people, and they
Yeah.
are high class people. And
When
I mean
they
that-
started serving the hors d'oeuvres for Christmas dinner,
Yeah.
and you said, "Now when do we get the real food?"
when is Christmas
And,
dinner actually?
like,
And
this is it, babe.
It was like a cucumber sandwich. Now I can
And
tell
like
you right now,
quiche, little mini quiche.
my grandmother knew about Mater sandwiches, but she didn't know about cucumber sandwiches.
Right.
And I remember leaning over to your dad and saying, "Hey, this is great. When are they going to have? When do we have like the real food?" And he and I talked about it, and we came to the conclusion this was the real food.
That was the
now. I
real
will
food.
say,
It wasn't always like that, but that
it's
particular
true.
year,
Uncle Charlie
it
and
was-
Aunt Betty really knew how to entertain,
They did.
and they fed us well. So it was just that particular.
It just happened just right.
Yes, it was very interesting. So we went through all that and dated, and then, like you said, we dated for 2 years, and then we came up on our dating anniversary. Mm-hmm. And so August 19th was our dating anniversary.
Yeah. I was a student at Auburn.
You were in Auburn. I was the youth pastor at Union Number 3 Baptist Church in Ball Play, Alabama.
Yep.
So about 3 hours away from Auburn. Ironically, and we mentioned this last episode, I had decided I would not date. I was a student at Auburn and had decided I would not date anyone from Etowah County because it was just too much. The distance was too much. So we start dating. You graduate high school and head to Auburn, and here I am in Etowah County.
I know. We swapped
We had
places.
that long distance relationship with a lot of driving.
A lot of driving. And,
Yes.
And so I moved into the dorms just before class started. And that first weekend of class was our dating anniversary.
This is August of what, 2002?
Yes.
August 2002.
Yes.
And I had decided, okay, I'm going to ask Lindsay to marry me. And I really wanted to do it in a way that would be memorable. So we had planned an anniversary date. This seems so crazy to me now, having lived in larger cities now, but it made perfect sense then. I would drive all the way to Auburn. Mm-hmm. I would pick you up. Mm-hmm. We would then drive, 2 hours north to Birmingham, hour and a half north to Birmingham to go for our dinner date at the Cheesecake Factory.
No, we were going to go to the Macaroni Grill.
That's right, Macaroni Grill. Mm-hmm. Yes. I had Italian, correct.
Yeah.
So I thought, how in the world am I going to surprise her? Because I really wanted you to be surprised.
Yeah.
And so we'd planned this date to the Macaroni Grill, and I decided that that would be the night. So our second dating anniversary. So why don't you tell it from your perspective?
Okay, so I got all dressed up because it's an anniversary. So I was wearing a almost formal dress, and of course wanted my hair on point, my makeup on point, ready to go. And in my mind, we were going to go to the Macaroni Grill, and I don't remember. Had we ever been to the Macaroni Grill?
I know we
before?
had because we knew you could draw on the tables.
I know. So I guess we had been there before. I remember being really excited about being able to draw on the tables.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so you come to the dorm to pick me up. And do you want me to just tell the whole story from my perspective?
Yeah, and
or
I'll
where do
jump
you
in.
want- Okay.
I'll
okay.
jump in.
So you come and pick me up in your truck, in your Ranger, your Ford Ranger.
Stick shift.
Yes. And you begin to be concerned on our way to Birmingham as we're leaving town because your truck is very low on gas.
And I waited until we'd gotten just outside of Auburn.
Right. No gas
And I was
stations.
like, oh, no, I'm low on gas.
Yes.
Now, what you didn't know is I had driven around all day long to run the gas down so
Yes.
that I wouldn't have much gas.
Right. I did not know that at the time. And so you said, oh, I've got a buddy that lives right over here, the guy that you had worked with.
His name
doing
was
some
Corey.
Landscaping.
When I was a student at Auburn, I worked for Corey, and he lived just outside of Auburn, just a few miles north of Auburn.
And he owned a landscaping business. So you said he's got to have some gas on hand we can borrow, to get us to the next gas station. So let's just pull in here and I'll grab some gas. And so we pull down this dirt road that's, I guess, Corey's property driveway. And you park the truck, and then you said, you asked me if I trusted you, very Aladdin-like. Do you trust me? And I was like, yes. And so you said, I need you to put these on. And you reach behind the truck seat and pull out my Timberland boots.
Timberlands. That's right. Timberlands.
Which did not match my formal gown I was
Right.
wearing at the moment. And so I put the boots on. And you walked around and you opened the truck door, and I got out, and you started walking me down a path where you had put tiki torches, and they were lighted down a path in the woods. And we got to this space where you had clearly worked so hard to make really beautiful. And there was a table with a paper tablecloth that we could write on.
That's right.
Like macaroni.
Which Corey had already written on.
Yes,
because
he
of course
had.
he knew this was happening.
This
and
is awesome.
It was like, this is like totally awesome or something like. It was very surfer-like, very
yes,
Corey-like.
this is awesome, dude, or something like that. And so that was there. And then there were a couple of things like covered up in the area, like on an easel. There were some things on it, clearly like on an easel, covered up. And I believe we had like Kentucky Fried Chicken. I
think it was Kentucky Fried Chicken. I do know who provided the Kentucky Fried Chicken. So shout out to Randy and Rachel Helms, who was Rachel Gidley at the time. They drove all the way down to Auburn to help make this happen. And so after I got everything set up there, they brought the food in and put the food in so that it would be there, when we came in. So,
and I feel like you put like some sort of tarp or something up because it had been raining.
I don't know if it was. I'm sure it wasn't a pop-up tent because,
no,
as you know,
no, I'm pretty sure you tied a tarp.
Yeah,
in the
I think I did tie a tarp
because it had been raining and you were afraid it might start raining again. And so
I know we had a tent there. I think it was a tarp for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's prophetic, isn't it?
I know.
I'll sling a tarp up in a second for a tent.
Yes, you will.
They make great tents, by the way.
Yes, you
I don't know why people knock them.
So we sat down for a dinner and had dinner, and then you led me over to the easels where they were covered, and you uncovered them. And so one at a time, one of them was not covered. And the other one was covered. So the one that was not covered was a painting you had made for me for my birthday.
People did not know.
I almost brought them for our video watchers.
But I'm quite an artist.
You are.
I'm not really quite an artist, but I did paint.
But
these.
you actually took art lessons from a friend, from Randy's mom, Jan, and learned to paint this beautiful landscape for me for my birthday the year before. And so it was of these two rivers that kind of are coming close to one another, just a real pretty, like hillside type landscape. And so there was a second painting covered, and you uncovered that, and it was like a continuation of the picture where the two rivers become a waterfall, and you explained about how the Lord had led our lives, our individual lives, toward one another, and that you hoped that He would make us one. And then you got down on one knee, and you had a very pastoresque proposal. I think it had 4 or 5 points to the proposal.
I don't remember how many points it had, but I do remember counting the points with my fingers as I said them.
Yeah. You intentionally said my name, and you told me that you loved me, and said that you wanted to spend the rest of your life with me, and asked me if I would marry you. And of course, I was very happy to say yes. You had a beautiful ring that you were showing me and throughout the whole proposal. And then you read scripture to me from Genesis
chapter 2.
Yes, would you like to share about that?
So I read from the end of Genesis chapter 2, for this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. I was so nervous. I had highlighted it in my Bible to make sure that in that moment I would look to the right section and read the right section. And I did notice later that although I did not read it, I had accidentally highlighted the next verse, which said, "And the man and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame." I'm really, really glad I did not read that verse.
That could have been a little awkward.
And mess up our proposal.
You had music. You also
we had music right there. Chicago, I think.
Yes,
we're playing Chicago.
We got to dance a little bit.
Yep.
It was just a beautiful proposal. And this was before proposals were what they are now. I mean, like you were really. I mean, I think that would even be a 2025 worthy proposal.
Yeah,
so.
I'm glad, though, that there doesn't have to be somebody hiding in the bushes taking pictures and video and all that stuff.
That is something that I remember specifically telling you that I wanted for our proposal moment. Because we knew we were going to be married.
And you told me you didn't want it to be public.
You wanted
it to be just us.
Right, because I didn't want to feel pressure to react a certain way in front of a crowd of people. I wanted it to be a moment between just you and me. And so
we went out in the middle of the woods, and I went out in the middle of the woods and built a restaurant.
That's what you did. That's what you did.
So, and another funny part of that I always think is funny is, like I said, I was a youth pastor at Union Number 3 Baptist Church, and small church in the country, church that really was growing a lot at the time and has grown a lot since then. But
about 5 hours or 4 hours from where I was in school.
yeah, about 4 or 5 hours,
Yeah.
and pre-social media.
Yes.
But still, the man who did the announcements, James Hayes, who was, just had an incredible influence on my life, he did the announcements every week at our church. And so that, I don't know what day of the week it was that we had this anniversary date and that we got engaged, but I know it was in the middle of the week. And on that Sunday, the Sunday before, James stood up and said, hey, we've got this going on, we got that going on, and y'all pray for Derek. He's going to get engaged this week. And I remember, I said back from the congregation, I said, well, I don't know, she might not say yes. Oh, she'll say yes, So it was announced at our church that you and I were going to get engaged that week. And so when, after the engagement, you were so excited. You wanted to tell everybody, and unfortunately,
I wanted to call everybody and tell everybody.
Yeah,
they already knew.
You were the last one to know.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, every single person important to you knew already.
They were either a part of the proposal process itself, or they got the announcement.
They already knew. So
early.
Your mom already knew. Your dad already knew.
Which that's to be expected.
Yeah, Randy and Rachel already knew. Everybody at my church already knew.
Yeah.
So by the time you start telling people, oh yeah, well.
Sure, we knew.
So we got engaged. We had planned to get married. I think it was in March of 2024.
Right, like a year and a half later.
Mm-hmm. And you
not of
were
2024.
Oh, that's right.
2004.
Wow. 2004. March of 2004. And that would have given you time. Really, you wouldn't have graduated yet, but you would be just a month or two from graduation.
At my student teaching.
Yeah, you'd be
everything.
finished with all your classwork,
Yeah.
and you went to school for elementary education, so you'd be doing your student teaching. And so once we got engaged, premarital counseling was kind of becoming a thing, but it was really, especially where we were from, just wasn't something that I had ever really heard of. Mm-hmm. But we really wanted to seek out some godly counsel. Mm-hmm. And now the person who actually, your dad did our ceremony. Mm-hmm. So your dad is a pastor, and he performed the ceremony along with Mel Johnson, who was my pastor when I was a teenager. He performed part of the ceremony. Larry, my pastor at Union Number 3, he was actually in the wedding. He was one of my groomsmen. And so we definitely didn't want to go to your dad for premarital counseling, because that would be, a little bit awkward, right, being counseled.
And as we've told couples before, everything you're going to learn about marriage from your parents, you've learned in the years that you've spent in their homes. Yeah. So it's really wise to try to seek external counsel from people who are outside of the family situation to be able to speak into your marriage.
And so the college minister at Parkway Baptist Church, who just recently retired, by the way, Dick mm-hmm. Bagwell, he did premarital counseling for us. Mm-hmm. He didn't have any part in the ceremony, but he did do premarital counseling for us. But then also we just found couples that we really admired their marriage. So Mark and Kay Weipert, mm-hmm. and then Bob and Faye Thornton. Thank mm-hmm. you. We just asked them if we could have some time. Yeah. And we went over and we met with them, and it really was like open-ended.
And I think it's good to mention that those three couples that we went to were in very different seasons of life. So Mark and Kay were in their 30s. They had just, started parenthood, and so they were in that season of life. And then Dick and Jana were in their season of life where their kids were like college age. And then Bob and Faye were in the last season of their life, their grandparent, great-grandparent season of life. And so to hear from those couples in all those different seasons, what has made your marriage successful and strong?
And we saw that in those three couples. Basically, it was like this litmus test. We wanted our marriage to be like their marriage when we were at that particular stage of life. And so it was very open-ended. Just, we didn't go with a list of questions. We just went with, tell us what it takes to have a marriage that honors God. Mm-hmm. And they were so gracious. They all shared so much. And I remember Bob and Faye talking about how when they first got married, he was in seminary, she was working a job, and I think it was like 1 hour a day.
Yeah, he said 1 hour.
24-hour period that they had where they could see each other. And so they always carved out that 1 hour a day, mm-hmm. and that was the way their life was for so long. What other advice do you remember? I
don't remember specific advice other than just them listening to what we had to say, and them telling us specifically, just conveying their their passion for one another
Yeah.
and their passion for the Lord. Like they all served the Lord in their marriage was a tool that they used to serve the Lord. So like Mark and Kay, they used their marriage to serve the college students in BCM, and that was just a strength for them. So I think that was really, that impacted me, not as much words. I mean, I'm sure they said really great words that helped me in the moment. But when I look back, I really think about the example that they set as they modeled that. You know,
I also
like
think about Mark and Kay, which is still obvious today, although we're not in touch with them. We are in touch through Facebook, but it's still obvious in their Facebook post. They were like, they were like crazy in love with each other.
Yeah, super affectionate,
Very
not
affectionate.
apologetic about their affection.
Yes.
Yes.
And, some reason Kay thought Mark was like super attractive.
Yes.
And, I never looked at Mark and went, there's a good looking guy right there. Sorry,
Yes.
Mark, if you're listening. But, but man, I mean, Kay just thought, he was the best looking guy there ever was. And like all that stuff. And it was and they were like that all the time.
Right.
And we were around them a lot. We saw them in good times and bad times and difficult times and stressful times. And their love for and affection for each other was always there. It was very consistent.
Yeah.
With Dick and Jana, I remember he did more of a formal kind of counseling with us, where we just kind of sat down and I think she joined us for, I know, at least one session.
She did, but I remember him asking us some specific questions that really helped us to kind of strategize before it was reality. You know, he really helped us think through some hypothetical situations that might come up in the first couple of years of marriage, and then we were able to think about those things outside of the emotion of the situation,
Right.
and that was really helpful to me.
And I tell couples this, and this is where I got that from. Hey, when we're in premarital counseling, these things will be fun. We'll laugh at them. They'll be very funny, and we can have a good time with them. If it happens, a month or 2 months into marriage, then this will be conflict. Mm-hmm. And so much of the we had conflict, if you will, that was kind of fun conflict, and we worked out our differences of opinion. How many kids did we think we would have? And like all those kind of questions that you might not think to ask. And once you're 3 or 4 months into a marriage and you ask that question, well, there's just a whole different level of tension that comes in with that. I also remember him challenging us not to have cable for the first year of our marriage.
Yes.
And for me, I didn't watch a lot of TV, but Saturdays in the fall, I wanted to watch college football. I loved college football, and that's what I wanted to watch. And so he said you shouldn't have cable for the first year. Two reasons. Number one, it saves you money. But number two, it gives you more time to connect. It kind of forces you to connect with each other.
Yeah.
And so we followed that advice, and a year came and went, and we realized, wow, we don't need this.
That's right.
And so we've actually never had cable. The only time we've ever had cable at our house was when we were forced to have it because of the internet plan that we had, and we never turned it on.
That's right.
So when effectively didn't have it. We've never had cable. We've never had satellite. We never had any of that.
In the same vein, it doesn't really matter as much, but just kind of a fun fact, we've never had a landline.
No, we haven't. We
So
have never had a landline.
we were kind of ahead of the trend
we
on
were
that.
trendsetters. I mean, we were trendsetters in that. We had cell phones from the very beginning, and we said, why do we need to get another telephone? Like, why would that? Just call me on my cell phone.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we were definitely trendsetters in that.
Yeah,
All right,
so our wedding date was set for March,
Yes.
a year and a half after our engagement. And we quickly began to see that was not going to be a healthy thing.
And we got advice from, I don't know if it was all three couples, but from multiple people who said, your engagement doesn't need to be longer than a year.
Right.
And why is that? Because in an engagement period, and if you're kind of in that period, maybe you're seriously dating someone, or maybe you're even engaged, in an engagement period, by the way that our culture is designed, you have to start building your life together. Mm-hmm. You've got to start looking at houses. You've got to start trying to figure out who's going to work where and what that's going to look like. And you have to even make major purchasing decisions together about vehicles, or whatever happens
China.
in that.
Your China.
Of course, yeah. We got to talk about our China, but you start making those decisions, and so you're acting like a married couple.
Yeah.
And that's very different than it would have been, 300 years ago. In whatever engagement period there might be, you're really not doing any of that. Maybe the parents are working all that out, but you're basically every step you take in an engagement process, you're basically playing husband and wife.
And it's an opportunity to build intimacy.
Yes, and you're building intimacy.
You're learning to
Right.
communicate together. You're making these decisions together, and so you do begin to feel connected on a different level than you do just dating one another.
And so, if you're not careful, physical intimacy will increase with that.
Right.
And so that was the advice we were given: is be very careful about that. So we heeded that advice, and we moved our wedding date up from March of 2004 to August of 2003. Mm-hmm. And that was a decision that you and I made together, and it was not an easy decision.
No, it wasn't easy. And a lot of the reason why it wasn't easy is because we didn't know exactly what that would look like financially for us. So my parents were so gracious to say that they would, pay for my college until we got married, in hopes that I would finish college before we got married. And so when we had to come to them and say, hey, we really believe that the Lord is leading us to move the wedding up, just out of wisdom, then, but we fully understand that means, in saying that to them, that we are very likely to have to take on the financial burden of paying for my school
and also paying for the wedding
for the wedding. Right.
We walk. And your parents were not in any way unkind to us about any of that, but we walked into that meeting with the thought that, okay, if we're taking responsibility for this, we can't expect anybody else to pay for this.
Right.
And so we'll do this. And I remember in that meeting making a commitment to your parents that I would pay for your school if that's what they felt like was needed, and I was fully prepared to do that, and that you would graduate, and you would graduate on time, mm-hmm. and that we were committed to making sure that happened. Yeah. And so I want those, again, not that we did everything right, but I do want young men to hear this. Mm-hmm. When you say to a young lady, will you marry me? You are saying to her, I am fully prepared in this moment to take care of you, to provide everything you need. That doesn't mean that you're going to have everything you had at mom and dad's house.
Right.
But I will take care of you.
That's right.
I will make sure you have what you need.
You're not promising to continue the same standard of living, but you
Thankfully.
are. Yes. but you are promising to care for that person, and to provide for them, and to do everything that you possibly can to give them what they need.
I think we've got to get rid of this idea that you get to get married, play house, and somebody else pays for it.
Yeah.
It is your responsibility. It is your life, and young men especially. It is yours to fund, and it is yours to take care of, and you need to step into that. And some of the young men really just frankly need to be called out and take responsibility and do whatever it takes. And one of the things we talk about in premarital counseling a lot is that a young man needs to be willing to work 3 jobs before he asks his wife to work 1. And that's not to say that a wife can't work outside of the home or anything like that. We're not against that in any way. It's just that mentality of the husband. I will provide for my family. Mm-hmm. I will take care of them no matter what, whatever I can do. And so we went in with that mentality, and your parents agreed to continue paying your tuition, and we were very thankful for that. And they said, well, we still want to pay for the wedding, and so we were very thankful for that. And so my parents, of course, they were the groom's parents, so they had a little less responsibility, but still agreed, yeah, we'll take care of the rehearsal dinner and our responsibilities. And so we moved our wedding date up to August, from March to August. And
I used mostly my graduation gifts, financial graduation gifts from high school, and money that I'd earned from summer missions to buy your wedding ring.
Yes.
So
which is a really great ring.
Yeah.
It's like a really awesome ring.
And I think it's really sweet that that was what the Lord provided that for me to be able to get that for you.
I think it's important for people to know that you were 19 years old when we got married, mm-hmm. But you are a very different 19-year-old even than 19-year-olds were in the year 2000. In 2003, excuse me. So you were a different 19-year-old then, and we got married in August, and you were on track to graduate in less than a year. Mm-hmm. And so you were an exceptional young lady, and of course, which is why, I had to take you out to the restaurant built in the middle of the woods and ask you to marry me. But you were an exceptional young lady. You were very mature and you were very focused. And so you had done dual enrollment. You had worked, your summers and you'd done those things. So it's really neat that you were about to graduate. You had just graduated high school, really, maybe a year earlier, and you were getting ready to graduate college. So that was very impressive. You were very focused. So we got married, and is anything else in the engagement time frame you want to talk about?
Well, we did throw an engagement party.
We did.
And that was fun.
That was fun.
And you and Randy got to make a ridiculous video
we did.
That my family just didn't understand. All of my cousins were like, what was that?
Comedic genius is what it was. Honey, I normal sized the kids.
Yes.
It's
not sure what it had to do with our relationship.
It would take.
Y'all just got to have some fun.
It was actually my gift to you for our engagement party.
It was Valentine's
and
Day.
Somehow it accidentally got taped over. We still have the camcorder and we have the little tape that was on, but somehow it got taped over. I don't know how that happened, but okay. I know I didn't tape over it, but I'm not sure how that happened. It was a comedic masterpiece.
And then I was reminiscing on this with the kids the other day, how the Lord blessed us so much with the churches that we were connected to.
Yeah.
We had, I think, 3 or 4 really large bridal showers.
People kept wanting to give us showers.
So there was your home church. There was the church where my dad was serving. There was the church where you had been called to serve in Cuthbert, and they all threw showers for us. So are we going to talk about the Cuthbert shower just a little bit?
We can talk about the Cuthbert shower.
Okay.
So I was the youth pastor at First Baptist Church of Cuthbert, Georgia.
Yes.
Which is a beautiful, wonderful town in southeast Georgia.
Southwest Georgia.
Yes, Southwest Georgia.
Yeah. And it really is like going back in time when you visit there. It's just a beautiful place and quaint little town. And what brought this up with the kids is we were talking about opening up birthday gifts in front of people. And one of the kids was talking about how they don't like to do that. They don't like to open their gifts in front of other people because they feel this pressure to respond and react, And so I was telling them about, well, just wait until you get married and you have to open all these gifts in front of all these people. And some of them you don't even know who they are.
Right.
And then you want to try to make eye contact with these people and thank them, and it's really awkward. And I said, but one of the showers that we had, they did it the right way. They opened all of the gifts for me, and they displayed them out on the table. They wouldn't even let me open the gifts, I don't think, even if I wanted to, because they had a very formal way, a traditional way of throwing a shower. And they also had a jewelry store in town.
Can I tell this?
You go ahead.
Okay, can I tell this? Because I was a full-time youth pastor, but I wasn't making a lot of money, and it was a small town.
You were a thousandaire, baby.
Oh, yeah, I was a thousandaire. I might have even been, no, never mind. No. I was a thousandaire, barely. So they have a shower, so we have to register, and we registered, and they basically, it was a small town, but they were like, the church staff was like, well, you have to register at this one particular jewelry store.
Right.
So when you register, you make a list of, 100 things, and maybe, 20 of them get purchased.
And they will order in your things.
Well, no, I'm talking about normal registry. You go down to Walmart,
right.
You may register for 100 things, and you think, well, people will buy 20 or 30 of these things, whatever.
That's right.
Well, at this particular jewelry store, you go down there and you register, and they purchase the items and they bring them in and they set up a little table with your name and your picture on it, and people can come by. Well, we went in there and registered for stuff, and who knows what to really register for. So you register for stuff, and then we found out like a couple months later that whatever is not purchased for us, we have to buy.
Right.
And we had no idea about this. And it's like, it's a jewelry store. You can't go in there and register for a mixer. I mean, it's like China punch bowl,
things,
and yes, it was very formal.
Crystal, silver.
And so I was panicking. I thought, well, how are we going to buy this stuff? And why? I didn't know that. Or we would have registered. I would have registered for like 3 things, put them on that table. But the people of First Baptist Cuthbert were very gracious, and they bought everything on that table. I think there was like one thing left.
Everything but one spoon. We had to go back and we bought the one spoon.
And so, but then I remember when we first got married, we had the china cabinet, and I mean, it was sharp. Mm-hmm. We had that china was there, and it was looking sharp. And I remember, I remember thinking, so should we eat the hamburger helper in that china?
Right.
Like, should we get that bowl down and heat the hamburger helper up in that?
Right. Do we use the fancy spoon for the ramen noodles?
Yes. And when we don't have enough money to eat, it will really be nice to look over at that china. But I will say the church was very gracious.
Yeah.
They provided, the salary was excellent, and
They
for me,
they
and
stocked our pantry. Do you remember
Oh,
that?
yeah,
They
they were
filled our
so good to
pantry
us.
with all the food and all the things for us.
not
when we
to
got
mention
home.
there were about 3 restaurants in town that any day
Yeah.
on any day of the week I could go in and eat in those restaurants and not have to pay.
Yeah.
You know, it was that kind of small.
Yeah.
It was a wonderful,
It really
wonderful
was a
little town.
sweet place for us to begin our marriage.
And so we, so we lived in a house owned by the church. I need to tell everybody how we got our couch. So
Okay.
we lived in a house owned by the church. We're newly married, and you've moved now to Cuthbert, Georgia, and you're living in this home that's owned by the church that they provided for me as the youth pastor. And it was a huge house. It's just the two of us, and there's like 4-bedroom house and a formal living room and, you know, a sitting room. And then, you know, we have nothing in the way of furniture. And so we scattered our furniture out here and there that we had, but we didn't have a couch.
Right.
And so I was just very much like, well, we're not going to go in debt for a couch. So let's buy the couch when it can afford. Do you want to describe the couch we could afford?
It was a futon that was used that we purchased from Craigslist
Back in the Craigslist days.
back in the Craigslist days before OfferUp or Facebook
Right.
Marketplace existed. And
we paid like $50 for it.
Yeah, we drove about 2 hours to go pick it up and put it in the back of your truck and bring it to the house.
And we brought it back and we put it in the middle of the living room where a couch should go.
Right.
But it's about, 6 inches off the
Right, it
ground.
was very low.
It is a regular futon.
And it was used. Did I say
It
it
was
was
used
used? Okay.
futon.
So, there were some parts
So
that weren't so
we had an open
sturdy.
house. We felt like since the church was gracious enough to give us a house that we should invite the church over to our house.
Mm-hmm.
And we told everybody, no gifts. We just want you to come and spend time with us. We want to get to know you. And so the people of the church came over.
Yeah, and we made it like a lot of desserts and
Yeah.
snacks and things. And I remember burning the recipe, like this one recipe of these raspberry bars that I had made, burned them really bad. And your mother was like, just throw some powdered sugar on top. They'll never know. So we just covered it with powdered sugar. And I remember her telling me, you are so brave to make all these new recipes with
Yeah.
all these people coming over.
And-
And I just told her, I've never had to make any recipes. So
Right.
anything I try is going to have to be new. I don't have the luxury of all the experience of baking for people.
So a lot of the ladies who came over to the church were very high class, very civilized,
White glove
formal
church
white glove
ladies.
kind of church ladies, and they came in and they toured around our house, and some of them even sat on the futon and had to be helped up off the
Yes,
futon.
they did.
And so, anyway, the pastor. Next week, I'm sitting in my office and I get a buzz from the pastor, and I said, "Hey," and he said, "Hey, can you come in my office just a moment?" I said, "Sure." So I go into his office, and Tom was his name. Still a good friend to this day. Tom and Betty McClendon had a huge influence on our life and marriage. Yeah. And so Tom says, "Hey," he said, "Betty and I wanted to get you something. I know you said no gifts for your housewarming, but Betty and I really wanted to get you something." And I said, "Well, you didn't have to do that." So he handed me a gift certificate to the local furniture store.
Owned by some church members.
Owned by some church members. And it was a gift certificate for $300. And I mean, wow, $300. That was a lot of money. And so I said, "Thank you so much. This is really kind." And I said, "You know what? We've been actually saving for a couch. And so I'll put this to the side and we'll add a little bit of money to it and we'll go get a couch." He said, No. He said, "You're going to go down to the furniture store and you're going to buy a couch." And I said, "Well, Tom, I'm not sure $300 will get it. We probably need to save a little more money." He said, "No, I've already talked to Sandy." It was the name of the lady who owned the furniture store. "I've already talked to Sandy. Sandy promises me for $300 you can get any couch in that store. You're going to go down there and get a couch." He said, "Because after your open house," he said, "I'm tired of hearing from the ladies about how our youth pastor down there doesn't even have a couch in his house."
Which was a great
It was.
move, right?
It was a great move, yes. And anyway, so I was perfectly happy with our
We
futon.
were content, but the Lord blessed us.
The Lord
and
blessed us, and,
we got a
and so
great
we got a
couch.
couch. And we had that couch for years.
Sleeper couch.
A lot of mission teams and a lot of
Yeah.
pastors that would come visit us in Miami and those kind of things. You got use of that couch.
Yeah.
So we probably had that couch for almost for 20 years that we were able to get great usage out of that couch. So
we skipped totally over our wedding. Would you like to talk about your wedding day at all?
The wedding was great. I think that the fact that we skipped over our wedding is important for something that we often talk to people about. your wedding is just a wedding.
It's one day.
It's one day.
Yeah.
Your marriage is what matters.
Yeah.
That one day, you know what you want to do that one day? You want to gather as many friends and family as you can gather, and you want to testify to the gospel of Jesus Christ for the glory of God.
That's right. I remember the biggest thing I remember about our wedding is how intentional we wanted to be to use that and leverage that for the gospel. And we knew there were going to be people in that room that we would not have any opportunity any other way to be able to share the gospel with them, but they would come and sit through our wedding because they were our family or they were people that felt obligated to be there for our wedding day. And so we wanted to leverage that as a moment to be able to share the truth of the gospel. And so in every aspect of the ceremony, we had purpose and intentionality behind that to bring glory to God, to highlight the story of the gospel of the life, death, resurrection, ascension of Jesus, the offer of forgiveness to any who would come to Him, and I think that was accomplished.
And I want to say, you were such a model in this to all the brides or would-be brides out there, potential brides. The wedding's not actually about you. It is actually about Jesus. And you don't get any further than Genesis chapter 2 before you realize that God is teaching us something there. And according to Paul in Ephesians chapter 5, all the way back in Genesis 2, when he says the two shall become one flesh, that is a mystery that refers to Christ and His church. Yeah. And so the wedding really isn't about the bride, it isn't about the groom, it isn't about the mother of the bride or the mother of the groom or the wedding party or anything like that. The wedding is about Jesus. And if you go into that wedding with the spotlight saying, hey, everybody look at me, then you are stealing glory from Jesus. Yeah. And so you were very much a model bride in that way. And of course, you just also were just a model bride because you were so beautiful. The one part of the wedding, I knew everybody makes a big deal over looking at the groom's face when the bride comes in, and like that pressure you talked about of opening gifts, I felt that pressure of everybody's going to want to see me have some kind of reaction, and I'm just not a reactionary guy.
6 months later, you will.
6 months later, yeah, I have delayed emotional reactions. I have my entire life, but I have very fond memories of that day, and I think about Larry being there with me.
Yeah.
And Larry passed away a few years ago, and your dad means a lot to me, and Mel means a lot to me. But Larry, as my pastor, was my groomsman, and he was just there.
Yeah.
And I just miss him,
Yeah. And looking back on a wedding day is a special moment because you do see those people who were so influential in your life and influential in shaping us, and discipling us. And Larry is definitely one of those. I look back and see our grandparents who were able to be there that are no longer with us, and even just looking back at us and seeing who we were on that day, and that we're very different people today. And
I think about weddings often. And I look at the stage and I think, okay, who's on the stage, and are they really going to be in your life, 20 years later? Mm-hmm. And for my groomsmen, for the most part, they are. Yeah. And they're still very important to me. Yeah. And some of them I keep in touch with more often than others, but they're still shaping who I am. Mm-hmm. And I'm very, very thankful for lifelong friends like that.
Yeah, it really is a gift.
And so many funny moments from our wedding, a lot of funny moments. Mm-hmm. We could talk about that all day. We did realize we planned our wedding in January, and we were having this problem because your dad was a pastor of a Baptist church. Mm-hmm. We're Baptists, and Baptist and dancing. We have this weird relationship with dancing as Baptists. And so it's not so much that Baptists are against dancing. We're generally not against, mother and son dance or a bride and groom dance or any kind of dancing like that. We're afraid of what dancing will become, right? And especially on church property. And so a lot of churches have like something written into their bylaws, as the church that your dad was pastoring had, that dancing is not allowed in the church. That if you're going to have your reception at the church in the fellowship hall, you can't have any dancing. Well, we wanted to have dancing. We wanted to dance as a couple. We wanted to do the mother and son dance and the father and bride dance. We wanted to do those things. And so we were trying to come up with a solution. And in January, planning a wedding for August, we had a brilliant idea.
Yeah, we thought we will rent a tent.
Let's get a tent.
We will set the tent up in the parking lot, and it's going to be perfect.
And the church agreed to that. They
Yes.
said, that doesn't violate our policies, so you can set a tent up in the parking lot. And we said, this is a perfect solution to this problem.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had our wedding
Then August came.
in August.
In Alabama.
I do believe it was 103 degrees,
It was
I think, if I remember.
so hot. And the parking lot was, black asphalt. So it was just a trap for that heat.
People are wearing suits and tuxedos and dresses.
I don't think anybody passed out.
I remember looking around that room, and I remember saying this. I said, we need to look around this room right now. The people sitting in this tent love us.
They love us.
We can count on these people right here.
That's right.
So whoever happens to be under this tent, we can count on these people. So anyway, but we had a lot of great memories from that day, and so many other things we could talk about. And
Sure. Well, I think just to kind of wrap up the wedding and then move forward to conclude the episode, but the wedding was a ceremony that was something special that began something even more special. And so I don't think, the reaction of let's just go to the courthouse and sign some papers is the way to go. I do think there is beauty in gathering people, proclaiming and testifying to what God has done in our life and what we're trusting Him to do in our future, and having those moments to look back on, and the pictures and the videos. We love being able to look back on those. We have this one picture of us walking out to the limo to leave. That's just
there's like 6 different storylines.
yeah,
in
it's
that
just
one
fantastic.
picture.
So
Yeah.
I'm grateful. I'm grateful that we have all of
I
that.
will say this, that doesn't have to cost a lot of money.
Right.
And so your parents invested a lot of money in our wedding, and it was a very nice wedding. But you can also have a really simple wedding. And you can just, gather with your church family. You can just say, I want to get married to this person. Sunday afternoon, could y'all all show up at the church? And if the pastor could just come, and there's not a reception is not needed. You don't have to buy food for everybody. You can just have followers of Christ gather around you and testify to the gospel, and you testify to the beauty and truth of the gospel in your vows, and then you start your life together. So a big wedding could really be a simple, inexpensive wedding.
Yeah. So fast forward to the end of our first year of marriage.
Yes.
We celebrate our anniversary.
And by the way, I
Callaway
think it's
Gardens.
clear we're not going to get to up to kids. We'll have to come back and maybe pick up the timeline after that.
Okay, we can do that. But fast forward to our first anniversary. And we go to Callaway Gardens, got to celebrate our anniversary there, and we're just reflecting. We begin this process of reflecting on the year that God has given us together. And
Which we've done every year since that
we
time.
continue to do that. It's a fun way to celebrate our anniversary.
Kind of asking questions about, what's something that you're thankful for from the year? What's a great memory from the year?
What
And
was something funny?
what's a movie that we watched that you remember or something like that?
Yeah, a good date night that we had or something. So you asked me a question, or you made a statement to
I think
me.
you asked me what's something you're thankful for.
That's what I said.
And I said, I'm really thankful to the Lord that He gave us our first year of marriage, that He gave us financial stability. And your response?
I laughed out loud.
You have to.
I really thought you were joking. I thought you were doing that funny, sarcastic thing.
Yeah, and I was not.
No.
And it's because you and I came from different places. So I'd been on my own for a few years, and so I kind of had to make things happen and provide and that kind of thing. And you had been a student at Auburn, and you had just kind of, your mom and dad were still providing your way when you were a student at Auburn. And so what I meant by that is in our first year of marriage, there was never a bill that came in the mail that I couldn't just write a check for. I mean, bills came in the mail, I wrote a check, and I never had to think, well, I have to wait a couple of weeks to pay this one. And, we had money in the bank, and we might have, I don't know at this time, we might have had $75, $100 in savings. I mean, we really, but the fact that we were able to survive, and we could go out to dinner if we wanted to go out to dinner, and we could buy the things that we needed, and we could pay the bills, that to me was such a blessing from God that, like, okay, Lord, you took care of it.
Yeah.
You provided.
Yeah.
You did it.
Yeah. And for me, it was very different. And so it took a moment for me to understand your perspective on that. But then once I saw that, I was able to see how the Lord had provided. And, eating sandwiches every day for a year for lunch was, in my mind, like, wow, why are we doing this? But at the end of it, to see this is worth it. It is worth it to. And we were taken care of, and the sandwiches were good. Now, when we started,
and I think people would want to know why you stopped eating ramen noodles. Do you remember?
There were bugs in it.
Yes. Now, you ate for like a long time. You took ramen noodles with you.
We had this huge crate of ramen noodles,
which was kind of standard for me. I kept crates of ramen noodles.
I had never eaten
around.
ramen noodles until I met you.
Yeah, well, I used to price things when I was in college.
We're pretty sure ramen noodles are the reason why you had hypertension and bad
I didn't know there was that much
issues
sodium in them
in your post-college years.
Yeah,
but,
so I don't eat them anymore
there
because
were
of that.
there were bugs in
So
them.
you went to get your ramen noodles, and like you opened up the packet, and there were a bunch of the little tea flies. Is that what it was?
I don't know what it was.
A bunch of little tea flies were inside of the package, and they kind of blended in, and like as you were breaking, there was a bunch of bugs in them, and that was the last time that you ate ramen noodles.
That was it for me.
But that turned to sandwiches. So from ramen noodles to sandwiches.
And we tried to be so sweet and make each other sandwiches. And I would make your sandwich with meat and ketchup and cheese like you like it. And you would make my sandwich with mayonnaise on it like I liked it. And we're both holding our noses and we're both gagging.
I hate mayonnaise.
I hate ketchup.
Yeah.
And so we finally, after about a month of that, agreed, hey, we love each other and this is super sweet, but I'm just going to make my sandwich, you make your sandwich, and let's just
compromise. And we worked it out, So... Well, I am thankful to the Lord for a good start to our relationship and such a blessed first year of marriage. And next time, I guess we'll pick the story back up. And
we can talk about the years before kids.
Yeah, the years before
what
kids.
What the Lord taught us in that season.
Yeah. So we'll see you next time.
Okay.